Hey there, folks. I'm Matt Hansen,
And I'm John Johnson.
and you're listening to
Planes, Trains, and Comic Books.
the podcast where we discuss favorites we've reread, both classic and new comics we want to read, and everything else in between.
And here's the comic we picked this week.
Hey there, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Planes, Trains, and Comic Books. Today, in celebration of the Marvel TV show that just came out on Disney+, we're doing Moon Knight.
Yeah.
The first 4 issues. So this is actually in the collection called Moon Knight Volume 1, the Epic Collection. And it's the last 4 issues in that series.
Yeah,
in that collection.
Not the first 4 issues in that series.
Not the first 4 issues. No, John messed this up a little bit, and he read the first 4 issues. So he actually read 8 issues total because he read the first 4 issues, and then I was like, that's not Moon Knight 1 through 4. And he was like, oh, shit. So he had to reread it. So he actually got more context than I did about Moon Knight.
But yeah, it's because it's my new favorite character.
Yeah, and for that, I will just say, I read a little bit of the first issue of his first appearance, which was the first issue in that collection. And there's a werewolf in Werewolf by Night, as you might guess. And what's his name, John?
Jack. Well, so his French original name is like Jack Rousseau, but then he legally changes it to Jack Russell.
The werewolf is named
Werewolf
Jack Russell. The fuck was Stanley thinking? Anyway, actually, I think this was written by someone else at the time. But yeah, so that Moon Knight first appeared as like a guest, new character in Werewolf by Night, and he was just like, I guess, so popular that they kept bringing him back in like little one shots or Marvel spotlights or Marvel team ups, and until eventually he got like a precursor to a series in the Hulk magazine, and that's when we get the first of the actual like creative team that writes him for a long time in Moon Knight, and that is Doug Mahnke or Monk. No, I'm sorry, Doug Moench. Right?
Moench,
yeah.
Yeah.
And then there's also Bill Sienkiewicz on the art.
Yes.
And so, now, if you know anything about comics, Bill Sienkiewicz is a fucking master, and he did so much cool shit in like the 80s and 90s and now. I mean, he did the Venture Brothers artwork on all those DVDs.
Oh, that's cool. I didn't know that.
Yeah, I mean, you can literally pick out all his artwork because it looks so fucking cool.
Now that you say that, like, I kind of like, oh wow, yeah, that makes sense because the similarities in that style. Okay, yeah.
Well, and this was like the original stuff that he did, like for Marvel back when he wasn't quite that guy yet.
Yeah,
like
but you can see
he becomes it. But like, especially in the Hulk magazine where they did like the first little precursor story, that really looks like Sienkiewicz, and it might be because the colors are by Steve Olive in that, and just the coloring looks really good with his art. And then he also did stuff like Elektra Assassin and some other Daredevil books that he got really well known for. He's the guy that made the Spider-Verse Kingpin. Oh. He's the guy that made that version of him, the big fat,
big,
like stocky, weird looking one.
Nice.
So that's his Kingpin. And so, like, you know him just because he's such a good artist. His art is translated to a bunch of other stuff in the world. But so yeah, this was like his beginning start though. So like, it doesn't look like that. Like his art does not look like that, like the weird painting kind of stuff in this. But you can see the very like beginnings of that kind of stuff. Not fully, more so in the Hulk magazine stuff. That's Moon Knight. But in this, it's Moon Knight issue 1 through 4. That's like his introduction storyline, and it's it's Marvel being like, all right, we're gonna try this Moon Knight character out because everybody kind of said they were so into him, so we'll see if they are for real, Yeah. And this series went on for a while. I think it went on for like over 50 issues. So apparently people liked Moon Knight back in the 70s. So he was created in 1975, I believe, was his first issue. But this is from the 80s, I think. This is from 1980, I think, is when this was written. So. We start off with Moon Knight. It's a weird origin, or it's like a different kind of origin because he already appeared in a bunch of other stuff. So they kind of did some of his, not origin, but like just like what his powers are and things in other issues. So in this, they're just kind of filling in the blanks.
Which I kind of liked.
Reader. Yeah, I actually like that too. Just kind of, here's the beginning, and then, okay, we're going to cut ahead like 5 years or whatever. So we start off in the desert, and Moon Knight, if you don't know, has at the after he's Moon Knight, after the main character's Moon Knight, he has 4 personalities. But in this, at the beginning, he's just got one, and that's Mark Spector. That's the base personality. Some guy named Mark Spector, and Mark Spector is like a mercenary, soldier / like treasure hunter guy or whatever. Just hey, you need someone on your team to protect you from the locals or whatever when you're raiding Egyptian tombs. I'm your guy or whatever. So he's that kind of guy, and he has teamed up with a local ruffian named the Bushman. And I don't know if the Bushman he apparently has like I don't know if he tattooed this on his face.
It. Okay. He tattooed a supposedly like tribal death mask on his face.
Yeah, so like I mean that's like a juggalo level of
commitment
on that. So woo woo. So he has like and his teeth are like diamonds or something like they or like metal or something.
They're like metal and diamond pointed or something. Like they're like that's like part of his
the first grills.
It's like he's going to like if he's gonna like kill you, he's like, bite you and like rip out your throat,
which is weird
like,
and crazy.
It's crazy, but it is pretty like terrifying.
It's a different thing. This is a different comic too. Like the idea of your hero having 4 personas and they all switch between. It's like a weird idea, and I could see why it's like cool for like a TV show or whatever, and like interesting for the main character of that TV show.
Yeah,
you get to act as 4 different things all the time or whatever. So it's kind of interesting. But we get introduced to the main guy. Like I said, his name is Mark Spector. There you go. And so Mark Spector gets mad when they raid. I don't know why he gets mad at this one raid, but I'm assuming Bushman kills a bunch of people all the time because he's like not a good guy and they're always raiding shit. But he goes to like an archaeological dig and decides, hey, I'm gonna kill one of the main guys from that, like the head,
just the old archaeologist.
Yeah, and he's like, because they want the treasure or whatever that they found, and this is like a site where they've just started getting into a tomb of an ancient Egyptian king or whatever. And they're finding all these artifacts and gold and all that stuff. So there's a father and daughter team who is this archaeologist, who's leading this archaeologist dig. And the dad's like, I'm not going to let him touch my stuff or whatever. And like, he goes out there and Bushmaster's like just talking to Mark Spector. And the dad's actually able to like sneak up on him. But Mark Spector turns around and sees him and goes, hey, look out.
Hey, you crazy kid. What are you doing?
There's a guy trying to stab you, Bushman. And he's like, oh, shit. I keep saying Bushmaster. It's Bushman.
Bushman, yeah.
I'm sorry. I keep saying Bushmaster. But I feel like it should be Bushmaster. It's like that would be the porno version of this.
Wow.
He's the Bushmaster. Maybe Beastmaster is what
Beastmaster is what you're,
I don't know. I'm mashing things together, much like the porno. And so...
this ain't your Moon Knight.
Yeah. Oh, wow. Wow.
We know it's coming. So
wow.
Anyway.
Yeah. That's true. It's definitely going to happen.
Yeah.
So, anyway, look up those. It's not your.
just the you don't even need to like there's no like talking. Real side quick note. There's no real like talking about like the sexuality of it. It's just that. There's this series. It's called Not Your Whatever, and you
this ain't your ...
Whatever. Yeah, you fill in whatever title of a movie, a cartoon, whatever, and just like because they have G-rated trailers on YouTube, and just
watch those trailers.
Just watching the trailers is the effort that they put into like
the costumes,
and like getting the characters quote unquote
Let's just say John is a big fan.
The Simpsons, they're all yellow.
That's the creepiest thing I've ever seen in my life. Anyway, enough of your smut, John.
Oh my god! Hey, if things like Bridgerton and what is there all these shows now that they're all excited about.
What's that show you were talking about? The one about the women who are all oppressed later in the future.
Women
where they have to wear the habits and stuff and
Handmaid's Tale.
Yeah, this ain't your Handmaid's Tale.
This ain't your come out. Oh my god, that's so horrible. Wow.
Yeah. Anyway,
Moon Knight.
So, like we said, Mark Spector's like, "Hey, watch out, Bushman!" And that guy's trying to stab you. And Bushman sees the guy and captures him, and is like, "Hey, I can't believe you tried to kill me. I'll teach you a lesson." in front of the others, so they won't fight back. And he snaps the dad's neck. And his daughter, Marlene is her name, is watching this happen. And Mark is like, what are you doing? Why'd you kill that guy? And it's like, hey, Mark, you fucking idiot. Haven't you seen him tear? This dude has a fucking death mask tattooed onto his face with teeth that are like shark teeth made of metal or diamonds or both. And you think he would be aware of this dude and what's going on, but he's not. And he's flabbergasted and appalled at what this man has done to this innocent.
I'm down for stealing things, but I'm not killing people.
Yeah, I don't want to kill. Killing people's bad. All right, and raiding ancient archaeological tombs, not so bad. So he's like, oh my God, I gotta get the old man the body out of here, and then he takes it. I guess he realizes that the guy's dying. He got his neck snapped, but he's dying, and he's like, my daughter's in the house as he's dying or whatever. So Mark's like, oh my God, I gotta save her. So he goes and breaks down the door, and of course she watched them snap the dad's neck and saw Mark be like, hey, that guy's about to stab you. So she's like, get away from me. And she drives off, and then Bushman can tell something's changed with Mark. He's not the same Mark that he knew.
Yeah.
He keeps arguing with him, hey, why'd you do that and kill that man? And he's like, why do you care? So Bushman, they get in a fight, and Mark kind of attacks him, and Bushman takes him out with one punch. And then they're like, we're gonna throw you in the desert and just leave you here because they're in the middle of Egypt or whatever, or some desert. I don't know.
The Gobi Desert.
Sure. The Sahara.
The Sahara.
I don't know.
They didn't say so.
I have no idea. But they're talking about how he's stuck in at first it's the freezing cold at night, and then it's the super hot during the day. And he's found by the people who are doing the excavation for the archaeologist. And those guys, I guess, find him. They don't know who he is. So they're like, hey, we'll take him to the camp, where they happen to show him to Marlene, who is now in charge of the archaeological dig. I guess they just raided their camp, but not the actual dig site yet.
Yeah, because this is the tomb of the pharaoh Set.
Yeah, this is the actual tomb.
Yeah. And
we see in that tomb a statue of a very Moon Knight looking god or whatever, He's got the cloak on of Moon Knight, which is weird. I was like, so the statue just has a piece of cloth that is in pristine condition on it. It's been buried for years, hundreds of thousands of years,
and nothing is affected.
Yeah, and so it's amazing. But they throw him down in front of her and oh my God, we found this guy. He's almost dead. And then they kind of hear his heartbeat as she's crying, that's the man that got my dad killed. And then they're like, oh wait, no, he is dead.
No, he dead.
He's totally dead. And then something happens where the moonlight hits the god Khonshu statue, and yeah, I don't know, the stars align, and he comes back to life, and instantly he's like, what's going on? That's my cape. And he just takes the cape off of the statue and takes it and runs away, and is like, I'm gonna,
Yeah, it's interesting because there's the future stories where they kind of they take that and they make it a little more structured, and then I've been watching the show now too. But it was weird in this because it's it literally is something makes his heart come back, and they're they literally whatever it was, literally on the page it says whatever it was.
Yeah, they're just we don't know, but they could have literally made this explicitly supernatural. Yeah. It's a comic book. Why couldn't you just be in the spirit of Khonshu? But maybe maybe this is it. It was part of the Comics Code era. Maybe you couldn't have someone being possessed or
maybe
things like that, so they just had to be it's up to you to figure out what's going on.
They had some wavy lines around the statue. And
they definitely show something. The moonlight is on on certain areas of his face and shit. So yeah, it's just weird. I bet it's because of the Comics Code.
Probably.
That makes more sense, because they would do things the reason why Morbius is a living vampire is because you can't have undead characters.
Yeah.
In comics in the 70s, so they were like,
he's
not
living
undead.
Vampire.
He's alive and he's a vampire. So yeah, there's weird shit like that. But honestly, that kind of makes them more interesting.
Yeah.
Because you're like, oh, they had to come up with this weird workaround, and they did.
Yeah,
they shouldn't have had to, but they did, and it makes him an interesting, different character because of that. So, but anyway, so Mark Spector now in the cloak of the Moon Knight, takes a Jeep out of the camp. It's like the only Jeep there. And he's like, I got to get revenge against Bushman because he fucking left me out there. And he's probably doing some horrific things in the town that he's like invading or whatever. Because now they've moved on to, after raiding that camp, now they're raiding like a village. And he gets to the village and somehow he gets knives. I don't know. He gets some weapons and he starts taking out all the guys, like all his followers. And all his followers, luckily, wear a skull around their neck like a necklace. So that he knows, hey, that's a bad guy, like, because if not, he'd just be like, hey, is that guy bad or good? I don't know. So luckily, they brand themselves with a necklace, so that works. And then they say some fucked up shit like what Bushman's doing to the people in the city. So in the city, he gathered all the men and murdered all of them. They shot them all in like a firing line. Then they went back into the city and took all the women and made them basically strip dance for them. Yeah. Like they're all around in like a big, I don't know if it's a town square or just like a building that's got like a big area, but all the men are like, woo! And like the women who know that their husbands have been murdered by these people are forced to dance for them. Yeah. Sexually. It's very weird. Like I mean, very like horrific. Like, like I was surprised this was in a Marvel comic because usually they don't go that hard in the paint. I mean, like Uncle Ben dies.
That's okay with the comics code, but not.
Yeah.
But not
like this is okay with the comics code. Like we'll just massacre people and then like rape their women basically because they talk about that too. Like and more than dancing. Yeah. Like so, but we can't have him be possessed by a supernatural being.
By supernatural, some kind of force which has no scientific proof.
Yeah, and it's definitely not Jesus or God.
Yeah,
right? Because maybe if he was possessed by the Holy Spirit. There you go. Be a different character, I guess. But so Mark, is fighting people now, and I guess it's Moon Knight now. It's like the first incarnation of Moon Knight. So Mark's fighting people, and Bushman's like, "What's going on?" And Marlene actually comes in. She gets to the city and sees him, and he's like, "I can't believe I killed your father. I'm so sorry." Also, I think I glossed over the fact.
Oh, we did.
I totally glossed over this.
Because it's so ridiculous.
So, yeah, this is a ridiculous scene. So, back at the temple when Marlene sees him and he's about to die, and he does die, but right before he becomes Moon Knight, like, she sees his body on the ground, and she's like, he's the man who killed my father.
And she's like, I'm so sad, but...
But then she looks down and notices, his shirt is just a vest. He's just wearing a vest. His shirt is open. He's got that chest hair out. He's got muscly,
glistening abs.
Yeah, he's been in the hot sun. He's probably bronzed and everything. She's like, ooh, but he is attractive though. Yeah. Like she's like,
he was a handsome man.
He murdered my father, but hey, I'm DTF right now.
Yeah, it's very weird.
Yeah, so it's a very weird scene, but yeah, so she kind of follows him and like decides like, oh, I'm gonna like help you and don't worry about it. Like I forgive you for killing my father. Or getting my father killed, I should say, and stuff like that. And also, there's another guy who kind of joins their friendship here. It's a guy named Frenchie.
Who is French?
Who was the pilot that did drop him off, I think, in the middle of the desert. But like he's now, like, he doesn't like Bushman, so he's like, I'll join your team.
Yeah.
And so now Bushman and Moon Knight fight. And this was weird, I thought. Like, they're about to square off, and they don't actually fight. Because Bushman's like, I've lost the town. I'll see you later. I'll get you later, Mark, or whatever. And then like,
next time, Moon Knight.
Yeah, next time. And he just decides like, see ya, and he like leaves. I don't know. It looks like there's explosions about to happen, but I don't know what's causing that. I don't know. It looked like stuff's just on fire, and it looked like maybe his control over the town was losing. So he leaves. And then Marlene's like I said, don't worry, I'm forgiving you for what you did to my dad. And Frenchie's like, I'll help you too. And then he passes out in Marlene's arms as like she goes to hug him, and he's like, I'm sorry. And then we just cut from that moment where she goes to hug him to like 5 years later.
5 years later,
yeah. So, and then we get like a little breakdown of like the personalities of Moon Knight, or of Mark Spector, I should say. So, okay, originally there was Mark Spector, mercenary,
tough guy.
Gun,
tough guy for hire.
And then when he came back, I guess to like wash away all those mercenary sins of murdering and all that stuff, and because he had a bunch of money left over from the mercenary days, he invested it in the stock market. And I don't know, as you do back in the 70s, you get a new social security number and birth certificate, and you name yourself.
They call
Stephen Grant.
They call Stephen Grant the Wall Street Wizard.
Yes. So he was really good at investing, and he does that. So that's his main persona now is Stephen Grant. He pretty much never becomes Mark Spector again in the comic, at least in these 4 issues. So he goes from being 1 personality to 3. And when I say 3, we have Stephen Grant. And he says specifically, because I want to know what like the upper class people are doing. And then
it's it's an upper class informant kind of.
Yeah, it's like Bruce Wayne in Batman gets to be buddy so he can see all the corruption at the high end of the elites, right?
Yeah.
And then he also needs to know what's going on in the streets, right? So in the lows. And so he becomes a cabbie named Jake Lackley. Yeah. And Jake is, just a cabbie who drives around at nights usually.
He's got his little cabbie hat on.
Yeah. And with that it feels like he's more so Jake Lackley most of the time.
Yeah. Like
only Stephen Grant when he needs to be, kind of like when Bruce Wayne is like, "Oh, I need to be at this function to put on a face or whatever."
Yeah.
But Lackley is his main guy because
Lockley.
I'm sorry, Lockley is his main guy.
You're fine.
Because that's where all the other characters come from for his informants.
Yeah, it's like Jake Lockley is like his life and the characters that he's surrounded are kind of like the main people who help the most.
Team.
Yeah, that's like the team of people who are going to, as all of the story progresses going forward, they're the ones that like get called on the most to help. And then it's quote unquote financed by Stephen Grant.
Yeah.
And then Mark Spector again. He's just kind of that's who he is, but that's his in the background. He doesn't really.
When we say that's who he is, we just mean was.
Yeah.
Like he doesn't really ever go into that personality again in this. And I should say, I don't know. We were kind of talking about this. I don't know. He's not written as someone with DID, dissociative disorder, or whatever.
Identity disorder.
There you go. Or schizophrenia or whatever he was originally supposed to have. That's a later incarnation. In this, he does have 4 different personalities, and they are distinct because they literally make jokes like, "Who am I talking to now, Steven or Jake?" And he's like, "Well, I'm Jake because I got my cabbie hat on," or whatever. And so,
or it's funny because someone will say something to him, and he switched, and they didn't know he switched yet.
Yeah, and he's like, "I'm Steven."
Yeah, and they're like, "Oh, sorry, Steven." Yeah.
So it seems like that was maybe the writer of this liked the idea of, this is a weird saying, like the idea of a personality disorder like that, but didn't know anything about it and just kind of like, that's what it would be like, right? And like didn't quite get it. So it doesn't feel like a personality disorder, like a mental disorder. It feels like he's actively choosing at any time to become one of these personalities fully, but he's aware that he's doing it. It's not like he's snapping into them throughout. Like in the show, if you watch the first episode, he doesn't remember when he's one of the other personalities, and it's like, what's going on? I keep blacking out. Well, in this, he's like, no, I'm making a very clear choice to change into Stephen Grant now, and now I'm going to go into my cab, and now I'm Jake Lockley. And so it's an interesting take on, or like as a first take on the character, knowing what he becomes, it's interesting to look back on it. And and then the fourth, or I guess the third persona of Mark Spector is Moon Knight.
He is the Fist of Vengeance, right? Or is it the
I am the Knight.
Yeah, basically.
I am Moon Knight. Yeah, I don't know. He's been compared to Batman because of the money and because, he throws little shurikens or that look like moons that kind of look like batarangs, but
I could see some of that, and he has a ship in this that Frenchie pilots for him.
One of the dumbest designs I've ever seen for a helicopter, because it's got to be a helicopter because Frenchie's a helicopter pilot.
Yeah.
So I don't know how this flies, honestly, but so it's a big moon, like half moon shaped crescent.
Mm-hmm.
And in the missing part of the crescent is a propeller blade that when it's hovering, all the weight would be in the front where the metal crescent is, where the passengers and all that stuff. So I don't know how it flies.
It would have to be like
it would be leaning sideways like all the time, like leaning forward. But apparently when it's floating, and you could tell they just thought of this like just for the look in the comic.
Yeah.
When you see it from below and it's in the air, the blade, it's got the moon and the blades kind of disappear, so it looks like the moon's floating in the sky. It's such a weird design. It's like it would be terrible to figure out how to make this work in. It's almost like Owlman.
Oh, yeah.
In Watchmen, it's like, how does this fly? I don't fucking know. It just does. And it floats. It floats in the sky somehow. There's no wings or anything. It just does it. So yeah, it's kind of like one of those. Except this is even a dumber design than that. So. So now Marlene lives with him in a mansion that Stephen Grant owns, or that's under Stephen Grant's name, and they are lovers. They are banging it hardcore.
Yeah, and they don't obviously explicitly show that, but it's very implied in several scenes.
I was shocked a bit how far they went on some of the sexuality in this comic.
Yeah,
for the 70s Marvel, she walks around almost completely all the time in negligees or
bathing suits,
fishnets, bathing suits, like just leisure lingerie, as we'll call it, leisurely lingerie. Which, hey, good for him, right? But it's kind of weird that like that's her only thing that she does.
Well,
I mean, she does. Okay, she is part of the team.
It's that she's part of the team, and she does always come in at like the most opportune time, I feel.
Yeah,
but it's weird because like they don't. Like, except for when those things happen, they don't really make her seem like she's just kind of like the eye candy for the most part.
Yes.
And until she like happens to show up at some place
and do something, like she will go undercover in places that women are only allowed, or it would be good for a woman to be there. Yeah. So that she does help out on the team later on in this 4-run series, but or in these 4 issues, I should say. But she's like the main like person who lives with him and talks. She's like he bounces ideas off of her, and then there's a man named Crowley. Crowley.
Crowley.
Crowley. Is that how you spell Crowley?
I think so.
Okay, I don't know. I was thinking like Alistair Crowley. That's not the same.
Maybe Crowley. Maybe.
But it's Crowley. CARW or CRAWLEY, and that guy is also part of the team, and he's like the real informant for Jake Lockley, the cab driver persona, because he is a homeless person who's on the streets, knows what's going on. He's got the real finger on the pulse of where the real action's going down. And the first story arc here is actually about him asking Crowley, hey, do you know what's going on with these medallions? Because it seems like Bushman is coming to, is this New York?
I think so.
So Bushman is coming to New York to
every
Marvel superheroes in New York. So, Bushman has come to New York to try to take over, the gangs and all that shit and just get power. And so, of course, Jake's very angry. And I thought this was funny. So we get to see like the evolution of Moon Knight. Apparently, he hasn't been doing it for that long as like in costume in this, because the first time we see him change into Moon Knight, he has to get out of his cab in the middle of the street. He parked on the side of the road. Open the trunk. Take out his Moon Knight costume. Take off his clothes. Put it on his Moon Knight costume. And put his clothes back in that trunk and close it. And then he's got to remember where he left his cab while he goes fights his Moon Knight and then comes back.
Yeah.
And they specifically say, well, like later on, he comes up with a better, like, oh, I'm so glad I don't have to change out of my trunk anymore. It's like, you didn't have to do that before, right? You have a shit ton of money. You think they could have just figured that out. But it's like, maybe the writer hadn't figured it out yet, so they just whatever, he changed out of his trunk. So it's interesting, but so he goes as Moon Knight, he changes, and he goes to find out what's going on with Bushman, and he just starts going to like the dive bars in town and the seedy places, the strip clubs, and I think this is the same strip club that comes up later.
I think
it seems like it's like the one that all the bad guys hang out in. But yeah, so he goes in there, he starts questioning people, asking about Bushman, what's going on,
while he's kicking the crap out of him.
He's beating the fuck out of him. I like the way that they show his cape in this.
Yeah,
it's always in a moon shape, like a crescent shape behind him, which is kind of fun and like very unrealistic, but like fun to see on the page. It's very, very graphic.
Yeah, you just imagine like he's rumbling and tumbling, and every time, like in a panel, it would be like if they took a photo of him going, and it's perfectly crescent.
Yeah, it's just amazing. It's like almost like if it was Doctor Strange's cape and it has a mind of its own, and
Yes.
it always goes into aggressive shit. It's like that. But anyway, he breaks into where he thinks Bushman has been hiding, and all of a sudden, Bushman is not in the seat where he expects him to be. And he's like, wait, is he gone? He sees the dagger that Marlene's dad had when he tried to stab him. And but then all of a sudden he hears like, freeze! And we see that Bushman, who looks even crazier now, he's got like a fucking cape and like gold bracelets, and his mask looks more ornate and
It looks
stuff.
like he's had more tattoos done on
Yeah,
it.
like he's got like a jewel implanted in his forehead and shit. I don't know. He's like really gone all out. He's there with a gun, and he's like, don't move, I'm going to kill you. And they kind of, I thought this was interesting. He's got the gun on him, like trained on Moon Knight. And Moon Knight's able to just like, and like get out of the way of the bullets.
Yeah,
and,
I mean, he can't be more than like 6 feet away.
yeah,
From him.
like, I mean, all you have to do is pull the trigger, which is less than a second.
Yeah.
And Moon Knight's like, and like jukes him and like is able to make him miss. And it's also because Marlene comes in because she follows him because she understands that he's trying to get, Bushman.
Yeah.
And she wants revenge for her father still. So she follows him I think maybe that's why he misses more than anything, because she comes in and is like, oh. And he's like, what the fuck? And then like Moon Knight moves right as he fires. But then she ends up getting shot because he's like, what are you doing here? And he like shoots at her. She gets shot in like the side, but it looks like is a graze. She just gets grazed.
Yeah.
And but then Moon Knight and Bushman fully fight. And he's gonna bite. Like Bushman gets the better of him in a fight, and he's gonna like he pulls back Moon Knight's mask and like on the neck area, and it's just like, I'm gonna tear out your jugular. And he's like gonna bite him like a shark. But then we see that we get the introduction of a couple of Moon Knight weapons. I don't know if this was in the early issues, but he's got a truncheon, which is basically a nightstick that's made of metal, and it's kind of like what they used in trenches in World War One. And later on they actually like make it better, and this is just a straight metal rod that he like is able to put in the guy's mouth so he doesn't bite him, and like he's like and like he bites the truncheon and is able to get the upper hand, and then he starts beating the fuck out of Bushman.
Oh yeah,
like just like like, don't you ever say anything about Marlene's father again. Like,
keep Marlene's name out your mouth.
Yes, exactly. But harder than that.
Yes,
but
much harder than that.
Slap. So, and like so much so that Marlene is literally like, "Stop it! You're gonna kill the man." Which is like why she went there anyway. Like, but I guess we find out she's not as hardcore as she thinks she is.
Yeah.
And so, he just leaves him there and is like, "I'll call the police and put my calling card in the wall or whatever." The moon crescent.
A moon crescent orang.
Yeah, exactly. I can't. He calls them his darts later on. I'm like, what the fuck? They're not darts.
No, they're not darts.
They're like little boomerangs, basically.
Yeah.
And he throws them, and they stick in the wood or whatever, and that's it. But like, that's all he leaves. He doesn't leave a note or anything, and it's just like the police will know.
They'll know.
And I'm sure the police are like, "What the fuck is this metal thing?" And they like walk away. It doesn't mean anything. But yeah, then the police show up and find Bushman all beaten up and everything. And then the second issue starts, and it's a pretty fun story. I like this one a lot.
Yeah.
Actually. It's an interesting. It's like a character growth development for like his cast of characters that help Moon Knight out, and it's also like an interesting story. I didn't like the twist of it, but basically there's a serial killer, which is kind of a novel idea in the 70s. It's like when that's all kind of happening.
Yeah.
It's getting bigger, an idea in the American consciousness, so it makes sense that this is going to be in this series, because this is also a way more violent series, I think, than the traditional like Spider-Man is going to have this much violence. So there's a guy named the Slasher who's a serial killer, and he's killing homeless men specifically. So of course, Crowley being a homeless man is perfect for this, as an informant, and also he's in danger a lot because he's on the streets as a homeless man while there's a guy killing homeless people. So
what's his? Is this a sickle? I always mix up sickle and scythe.
it's like it's a sickle.
Okay,
it's a hand.
Scythe is the big one, right?
Yes.
Okay.
So
I
it's a sickle. It's a hammer.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Okay. That makes sense. Yeah. Hammer.
So
and
it's
sickle.
the sickle.
Okay.
So it's the handheld scythe, basically.
I would be legit. If someone pulled out a knife, I'm like, oh, crap. But if someone pulled out a sickle,
they mean business.
yeah, like I would legitimately, like my mouth would drop, be like, oh shit.
Yeah. So the first kill, we start off with a kill in this one, and where there's a man that walks up to a man that's sitting
David
on the
Bowie
stairs.
mother.
What?
He kind of looks like Jareth. He looks like David Bowie.
Oh, okay. I was like, they talk about David Bowie?
No. I just the bad guy. They make him. He kind of looks like David Bowie to me.
Yes, he does. You're right. He's got like a long. He does look. He's Jareth basically.
Yeah.
Without the pants, he has like.
Yeah, he doesn't have a
regular
bulge
jeans or whatever. Yeah. No hard bulge in his thing. But anyway, there's a homeless man sitting on some like a stoop, and this guy just walks up to him and was like, "Are you him? Are you the one? You got my answer or whatever?" And he's like, "What the fuck are you talking about?" And the guy's like, "I guess not." And he pulls out a scythe, and he just murders this guy. And pretty graphic. There's blood all over the scythe and everything. I mean, they don't show it directly, but like it's pretty crazy. And then we find out that like a block over, Moon Knight's taking out some robbers who were like going to break into, or no, they were muggers. They're gonna mug some guy, but he's been on the prowl for this specific serial killer.
Yeah.
So I don't know where he's been walking, but wouldn't it be pretty easy from the rooftops to see what's going on like 4 streets at once, and then be like, oh, there's a guy walking by himself.
Yeah.
Yeah, or there's a homeless man sitting. Maybe I should keep an eye on him, not some guy's about to get mugged or whatever. But either way, he stops a mugging, but then finds out, oh shit, someone just died like a block away. I failed. And then when he's beating up the muggers, we get to see how he's modified his truncheon. His truncheon now, kind of like Daredevil's billy club.
Yeah.
And that's basically what it is. I mean, it's a silver billy club. But he now he like hollowed one. He cut it in half, hollowed part of it out. So now it kind of clicks into itself. But when he wants to, it can become a nunchuck.
Yeah.
Because this is the 70s, and goddamn it, Kung Fu was badass. So he actually takes on a Kung Fu master later on in another issue of this. So
yes.
Pretty awesome. They fight nunchucks together, and it's pretty crazy. So, it's just ridiculous, of course. But they're like, yeah, he needs a nunchuck because why not? And I really hope I haven't seen the second episode, but I really hope Moon Knight has a nunchuck.
That would be incredible.
But either way, that's like the big thing. The big story the next day isn't the muggers that Moon Knight beat up. It's there was a murder like a block away, and then we see that Jake Lockley is the cab driver. Of course, Moon Knight has gotten turned back into his persona, and he's like, I guess every morning gets breakfast at this certain diner, and this nice lady is the server at the diner, and she talks to him regularly, and he also gets information from her because she has a lot of
Gina.
Yeah, Gina, and he gets a lot of information from Gina because she's talking to a lot of people at night.
People talk. People come in for a late night cup of coffee, piece of pie, whatever.
Yeah, and her and Crowley know each other because he'll come in when he gets some change or whatever and get some coffee or food or whatever. And she seems nice, like she likes to help out the homeless people and stuff there. So there's that's like his informant circle there. Those two people are the main informants at the beginning, at least. And then he goes home after getting some information, finding out that, oh, there was a murder, and I totally fucking missed it because I was busy with those muggers. He comes home, he's all pissed off, and he's telling Marlene. She wakes up as he comes home, and then he's like, I'm going to go swimming in the spa because I'm all sore. Like, you want to come with me? And she's like doing calisthenics next to him. There's a real emphasis of working out in this comic, too.
Yes.
Many times, whenever him and Marlene are together, they are working out. And like 70s working out. Like I imagine her. You remember those old workout videos from the 80s where it's like, and squat. And squat.
Exactly, yes.
That's how Marlene would work out, I'm assuming. Like the ones from the Goonies that the brother was watching. Like those. Like, yes. Yeah. So, but she's doing it, and she's also doing it in a nightgown. And I was telling John, I was surprised at how much definition or detail there was in the figure in her nightgown, because like literally I was telling him, I mean, it's like they just drew her naked and then put a pink color over the top of it. Like
basically, and then they added a little ruffle so you could tell like it was supposed to be a top,
a gown or whatever. But yeah, I mean, you could just see her nipples through it. I was like, wow, that's Marvel.
This is Marvel.
Marvel of the 70s.
Comics Code.
This is the crazy 70s after the
no demonic
60s.
Possessions, but
tits.
You could probably see them titties.
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
So basically she comes up with an idea with him to have Crowley kind of be the informant and like get like what's going on and be the guy to watch for this serial killer. Well, actually at first they're coming up with that plan, but in the meantime, while they're doing that plan, like we're cutting back and forth between them being like, maybe Crowley could help. Crowley's actually getting attacked by the serial killer.
Yes.
As he's walking. And, the guy asks the questions again. He's like, what are you talking about? And then he pulls out a scythe and you see, no. And then we cut to a panel of Marlene and him about to fuck. Yeah. And Mark, or I guess it's Stephen Grant, is like, no, baby, I got stuff on my mind. We can't go that far. We got to go do some stuff later as Stephen Grant. So I guess Stephen's having some kind of party or something he's got to go to. But then we cut to Crowley, who's bloody. He's actually alive. We thought he died. And the serial killer thought he killed him, but apparently he just like cut him really bad, left him to die. But Crowley gets to the diner and gets in right as, what's her name?
Gina.
Right as Gina's locking up. And she's like, oh my God, Crowley. And he's bleeding all over the place. And he gets to the hospital and the cops are like, called, but they're like, we don't give a fuck about homeless people. Yeah. Like they even say like, I mean, serial killers kill a lot of hookers, but at least those are like women, so we give a little bit more of a fuck about those.
Yeah, they call him a bum, and she's like, that bum is a human being, sir, and like he.
Are they though?
It was pretty horrible.
It's pretty straight up like cops are. So, so if you've ever watched any documentary about serial killers murdering homeless people or prostitutes or sex workers, they always are like, well, they killed 20 of them until someone finally was like, maybe we should look into this. Like they just don't seem to care, or they're always like, they're runaways. I'm sure they just went away. Like they just decided they didn't want to be in the city anymore or something. So they don't go out of their way to usually look for it. We also get the introduction of Gina's 2 children who are, I don't remember what their names are. Do you remember what their name? Ray and
Ricky.
Oh yeah, that's right. And they get introduced and they're still in high school. But they follow Mark Spector. I mean, not Mark Spector. Jake Lockley on his job. I can't remember why. Oh, wait, I remember. It's because Gina told her kids, hey, go find this cabbie and tell him that his friend Crowley is in the hospital. Because as of right now, Jake does not know that.
Yeah.
And so they find him. They tell him, hey, your buddy Crowley's in the hospital after he thinks they're attacking them or attacking him. And he beats them up a little bit, and then like, whoa,
oh man,
we're Gina's kids, Rick and Ray. So he's like, oh my bad, sorry. And so then he goes to the hospital to look after Crowley, and Crowley's like, pretty shaken up about it, and he actually goes a little bit into his history because, they're kind of like, well, I mean, you care about your life, right? And he's like, yeah. It's kind of putting it into perspective for him, like he could have died, and he kind of thinks about how he's wasted his life over the last 20 years. We get like a little flashback of he used to be happily married, but he was a salesman. And then on the road, you just kind of get drunk a lot and other stuff a lot. And then he came home and he would still drink. And then his wife got pregnant and he left the kid after they fought a lot and everything. They got a divorce. And he's like looking back on that and he's sad that he wasted his life and not a lot came from it. And he's tired of being how he is. So
he goes through all that, and then I guess they get him out of the hospital. And the best part of this is that they're all back at whose place are they? Are they at Gina's place?
I think it's Gina's place.
And he's like, "Okay, I'm going to tell you guys that I am the Moon Knight." And he just
reveals it. He's like, since we're all on the same team now, the kids. So the 2 kids, Ricky and Ray, the mom Gina, Crowley, and Marlene already knows. But he's like, "Hey guys, just so you know, I am Moon Knight." So we're all on the same page. And it's like, whoa, okay. I guess he's really trusting of these 4 people.
Yeah.
And so, or 5 people, actually. And so now that's like his team because they're all going to be part of his team going forward, for helping him. And so now they're trying to catch this guy, the serial killer. So Crowley's looking around, asking people. It's been a week. Nothing's happened. And then we see Crowley talk to a person on a stoop again. And the person's looking drunk and pretends to be asleep, or is asleep, I should say. And then the serial killer comes up to him and starts shaking him.
They think it's a serial killer.
Oh shit, I forgot it. Yeah,
but it's because they make it's the same coat basically.
Yeah. So you think it's a serial killer, and Moon Knight takes a punch at this guy because Moon Knight's actually the bum. He's pretending to be the bum on the stoop. Yeah. And he takes a swing at him and then realizes, oh wait, that's not that guy. And Crowley's like, yeah, that's not the serial killer. And then they hear a scream, ah. And then it's coming from an alley, and they chase the serial killer, and I guess he doesn't kill the person that he was going after that time because he's running away.
Yeah.
But they are able to apprehend him. Moon Knight, beats him up or whatever, and they call the cops. He gets arrested, and like Moon Knight's on the looking over and seeing everything, and then we cut back to Crowley, who goes back to his house, we'll call it, like where he stays, and we see he's got this little box that says cigars, and he's actually supposed to be a witness for this serial killer killing people, because he's got to say, hey, that's the guy who tried to kill me. But something's happening. He looked at the box of cigars and he realizes something, and he realizes, I can't talk. I can't be a witness to this. So then we cut to the court a month later where he's on the stand. He gets called to be a witness against this man who's the serial killer. And they say, did he do these things to you? And he's like, no. And everybody's like, what? I thought you were, going to tell the truth. And he's like, I am. I can't do it because he's my son. And it turns out that kid that he left 20 years ago grew up to be a serial killer. Who was, the questions he was asking were like, are you my dad, basically? Are you the guy who left? And like, and so it was like a big thing. And then the serial killer freaks out being like, what? And then lunges and gets a gun from the cops and then shoots a cop and all this shit. And then
is able to escape.
Yeah, is able to escape out of a courtroom with like 4 cops. And the cops are like, he's got a gun. We got to get out of here. They run away from the guy with the gun, which I thought was funny. But Moon Knight's on the tail of the guy, and he's running down the street, and Moon Knight's like following him, jumping off of like the flagpoles off of buildings and stuff, which is pretty cool. He throws his truncheon. It hits the guy in the leg and makes him trip. And then Moon Knight's talking to him on this building. I guess they run up to a building. They run all over the fucking place.
Yeah,
he trips on the ground, but he somehow ends up on the top of a building. And they end up on the top of the building, and Moon Knight's like, come on, buddy. You got to give yourself up. There's nowhere to go. Like, it's either this or, death or whatever. And the guy's like, fuck this. I don't care. I found what I was looking for, and I'm mad that, like, I didn't get to kill him, so I'm out of here. And he kills himself. He jumps off the edge of the building, and he falls, and he dies.
Yeah.
And it's very sad for Mark Spector, for the Moon Knight. He's like, oh, no. And, of course, Crowley's like, my boy, I feel so bad because I never got to say I'm sorry or be a dad or whatever. And that's the end of the issue. He's end like with,
just the saddest, worst thing, or not worst because he was a serial killer, but still, just like, nope, no, nobody gets justice in that one.
Yeah, no. And so we have another issue where it's kind of like a throwaway issue, I'll say, where like the story is there's a guy named the Midnight Man who's stealing stuff, and Moon Knight
stealing like art.
Yeah, he's stealing art. Moon Knight kind of is trying to figure out who he is. Turns out he was hired by someone we don't know who's been like trying to figure out how to get rid of Moon Knight, and he also, but he knows about it a little bit because he asks what's his face for Mark Spector's like. Yeah, it's like help. They know who he is, but they don't know who he is. Like they're like, we need Mark Spector. The bad guys are saying we need Mark Spector to help us find out who this Moon Knight guy is. Yeah. And then Mark's like, yeah, I'll help you out. And then like, they don't know it's me, but it's not me because I'm not Mark. I'm Steven. Or whatever. Like, it's so weird. But like basically the Midnight Man, Moon Knight tracks down the Midnight Man and is able to, or they kind of run into each other. I think the Midnight Man finds him. And they fight each other in Stephen Grant's house, I think, right? Yeah, he's trying to steal some artifact. Yeah, because Stephen Grant has all those artifacts of Egypt and everything. And so they have this pretty epic fight scene, and Marlene actually shoots him, which I was like, wow. She shows up again. She shows up at the right time. Just the right time. The Midnight Man's about to kill Moon Knight with a knife. Because I thought this was fucking ridiculous. Moon Knight breaks through a window fighting this guy. They fall onto like a ledge of a roof. Well, the glass is still there. And Moon Knight like steps towards him like he's winning. He steps towards him and it's like, oh, my ankle. I slipped on glass. And he just falls down on his ass from glass. All right, writer. Like I guess Moon Knight is pretty fucking clumsy, I guess. Like those shoes are not. They're not anti-slip. No, they are definitely not. And it's a piece of glass. It's not like the slipperiest thing in the world. Like, glass would crack, turn into crystal shards, and not slip everywhere. But whatever. He slips, and that gives Midnight Man the upper hand. And of course, like you said, Marlene shows up right when she needs to. She shoots him, and Moon Knight was like, "Holy shit, you killed a guy!" And she's like, "Yeah, I did." And then later on, they're talking, and he's like, "So that was crazy. You killed that guy, huh?" And she's like, "Nah, he's probably somewhere out there because I had to use rubber bullets." And then she throws a bullet.
And it goes boing. I like that. I like the sound effect.
Yeah, it's like, what? Like, I don't know why they had to do that, but I just thought that was ridiculous.
Well, and they will say that she shoots him, and the guy's like, "Ah," and falls back, and he falls into like a ravine or lake or something.
Yeah, it's a moat surrounding the castle-like house.
But he doesn't like. Moon Knight's like watching for him. He's like he doesn't surface.
He
for
doesn't surface.
And then he's like, well, he must be dead.
Yeah. So the people that hired Midnight Man follow that up with, "Hey, we want to kill this guy for real now. We're going to hire 5 real assassins."
Yeah.
Those assassins' names are Boom Boom,
the explosives expert,
Razor,
the blade freak,
Ice,
sniper assassin,
Dragon,
karate black belt,
and Bull.
Just a plain animal.
So stupid, but fantastic. And none of them, except maybe Bull and Dragon, look at all like scary or anything. Like Dragon just looks like a kung fu guy. Bull looks like a big strong man. But the other guy just look like fucking nerds from the 70s. They got bell bottoms on and
The
shit.
explosive expert has like a bomb from like a cartoon. It's
like
the
a big Acme bomb.
Acme bomb.
Yeah. It's weird, but sure, why not?
Not dynamite or,
Yeah, and this one starts off with the sniper assassin, Ice, and he's got a bead on Moon Knight, and he's like about to take him out, and it looks like he does shoot him, but something happens where I guess he had body armor on. I don't know how he got out of it.
Yeah, Moon Knight's. That's one thing, and they kind of allude to it because in this one they do go back and they reference the first appearance of Moon Knight a little bit.
Yeah,
in
from
this one,
Werewolf.
Yeah, Werewolf by Night.
Yeah.
Moon Knight's costume is made out of like some kind of cloth, but also it's got like silver in it. And so it's like supposed to be like,
you know how bulletproof
silver. I assume it's supposed to be some kind of like
woven Kevlar.
Yeah, basically like resistant to like bullets or like bad attacks.
They should have just said adamantium.
Basically.
Actually, I don't know. Was this? I think this might be before Wolverine, so that might not have been a thing yet.
Yeah. Well, and I thought it was funny because in the werewolf one too, they're like, "Oh, it's silver." They're like, "Oh, the werewolf's not going to be any match because how can he fight against a man made of silver?"
Yes.
Anyway,
Moon Knight's like, "That guy shot me." He appears out of nowhere and fights Ice and wins over Ice. Well, I guess Ice hits him in the face and then is like, "I'll be back."
Haha.
For some reason, doesn't shoot him right there in the head with a 30-06 or whatever. Like, these are you're an assassin, man. Shoot him in the fucking face. It's probably not bulletproof.
He would have to reload, or he didn't have any more bullets on him. Something.
It's a single shot rifle.
Yep, he only brought one. He only brought one bullet. That's the thing about this.
Actually, he brought 2 because he fires one time when Moon Knight's fighting him. Oh, that's what happens. Moon Knight is about to attack him, and the guy's got a long rifle. So Moon Knight pushes the gun up as he's going to attack, and the blast from the second shot blinds Moon Knight, and that's what gives Ice the
advantage.
Advantage. There you go. And that's why he's able to like butt Moon Knight in the face, and the guy runs away. So now Moon Knight knows, hey, there's some like assassins trying to get me. We get to meet the whole team and who hired them. We get another workout scene with Marlene and him, and they're like, like I said, there's a lot of working out. They like working out. Then we get another recap of their origin and how like Frenchie will dress up like a businessman sometimes to like go undercover and help like set up like, I want to hire 5 guys to kill someone. Who would I do that? And they're like, oh, you mean these 5 guys? Yeah, he'll do. And so he gets like information on who the 5 guys are, kind of thing.
Yeah, and I think it's also was referencing because there was like a committee. They call this the Committee of 5, and I think there was in the werewolf one, there was a committee that hired Mark Spector to go after the werewolf guy.
Yeah.
So
it's kind of like a cover. Like, how does Moon Knight get hired? It's like Frenchie goes and hires him.
Yeah.
And then, goes after stuff. So, anyway, we're trying to get information on who these 5 are, like specifically. He knows one of them was this one guy, but he knows there's 5 others. And he hears that, hey, all the high rollers are talking about 5 new guys that came into town at this new strip club called Bomberettes Nightly, I should
Nightly, yeah.
And it's just like it's like the Spruce Goose or some shit, like
Yeah.
that's converted into a nightclub.
Into a nightclub.
It's very weird. It doesn't look very.
It doesn't look
attractive
safe
at all, or safe. Yeah.
It looks like this plane is like propped up on a bunch of like
Well, I
struts or
assume the
something.
landing gear's down or whatever, and it's just held up there. But it's weird because you only have like 2 entrances and exits. They're very small boarding ladders or whatever,
Yeah.
and, and then there's a parking lot just next to it. So it was very weird. But this is where we get to see the team of informants and the team that he's built up with Gina and Crowley and the 2 boys, Ricky and Ray. So he tells Ricky and Ray. Now, keep in mind, he asked Gina earlier, hey, is it cool if your boys help us out in these like missions? And she's like, yeah, as long as they're not doing anything dangerous or, bad or whatever. Like if they're just getting you, hey, the kids in the neighborhood said this guy was doing something. Moon Knight takes that to mean, yeah, I'm going to send you 2 young underage kids into a strip club where you can see all kinds of dancing ladies and ask about, hey, do you guys know where we can find some assassins? 5 specifically. So these kids walk into this strip club and people are like, hey, aren't you a little young? And they're like, no, we're fine. And they're not mesmerized by the tits or anything in the stage. They do their job and they walk into the back. They ask questions and someone's like, go back there and ask them.
Yeah.
They walk in and someone's like, what the fuck are you doing in here? And like pull a gun on them. And he's pointing the gun at these 2 underage kids. And Ray or Rick, I don't know which one, is able to like grab his face and shove it down onto the ground, onto the table that they're standing in front of. And the other one, Ray or Ricky, gets the gun as it flies out of his hand. And now they have him at gunpoint. You got children.
Children with a gun.
Pointing a gun at a mobster or some kind of connected man. Dangerous individual. And it's not considered like a bad thing in this. They're like, good job, Ray and Rick. You did your job. Marlene literally is like, give me that gun. Good work, kids.
You little rascals.
You scamps. I can't believe it. Then, and this was one of the weirdest things I've ever seen in a Marvel comic. So then they're like, okay, we got to get some more intel, but we don't want to send the kids in. So we're going to send Marlene in to the strip club. And she's going to be a stripper. And she's going to get lap dances or give lap dances to all these assassins and get information.
Get information.
So there's a panel where, and I didn't quite understand this when I first read it, but then as I was trying to figure out what the fuck was going on in the art in this. So this is a strip club in the 70s. In a place probably where you can't show full nips or whatever. So they have those tassels on their tits. And they're swinging their tits around in a way that it's creating a propeller effect with those tassels. So when Marlene goes to dance for everybody, they don't show like her breasts or whatever. They just show like weird propeller effects in front of her chest that look like gigantic boob plates or something.
Yeah, they literally are like 4 times the size.
Yeah, I was like, what the fuck is going on? But it's supposed to be like a blurry image of what her tits would be like with her tassels on her nipples or whatever.
Spinning extremely fast.
Yeah, really fast. And so like the other thing was she's like, are you okay with like Steven with me giving lap dances to people? And he's like, hey, as long as you're just looking and not touching. She's like, all right. So like she's cool. Look, this is the 70s where people are free with sex and everything. Like, they're cool. She's with it, all right? So
She's hip,
yeah. And so she was giving like lap dances to these people and like figuring out who they are. In the meantime, we're like other people are finding things about them. Moon Knight tracks down the demolitions expert. She's giving specifically Ace lap dances though. I don't know if Ace is like this is where he goes to like calm down or whatever, to wind down every day. He goes to that strip club and he gets dances from her. So she's getting information from Ace. Moon Knight's able to track down Boom Boom, who's the demolitions guy.
I did like this because he finds a package or cat. He knows a cat finds a package, and he's like, "What you got there?" He's like, "Oh no, get away!" And he pulls the cat. He saves the kitty.
He saves the cat from being blown up. Boom Boom is like, "Man, I was going to kill that cat," and then the cat runs away, and then Moon Knight's chasing after Boom Boom, who's about to light a stick of dynamite, and Moon Knight throws one of his shurikens, his little moon crescents, and it cuts the dynamite fuse before it hits.
Oh yeah, I did like that.
He doesn't have a way to light it anymore. So shit like that. Like he's just tracing these people down. They keep getting away until we get to like the end fight scene. Like he takes on Dragon first, or like he gets to a boxing match or something, right? Isn't that like so he goes to a boxing match where I guess these 5 guys are going to be because it's like
a mob run. I guess somebody's going to probably throw the fight.
That's probably what
they were
it is.
getting at.
But he finds out, this is where all the 5 of them are going to be because it's a big event. I guess it's a heavyweight boxing title or something. So the first 2 people to approach him as he walks in as Moon Knight are Dragon, the martial arts expert, and the knife guy. What's Blade. So the knife guy's like, I'm going to cut you. And he instantly gets the shit beat out of him. And like his arm, like he's like, I'm going to stab you. I can't wait to stab you. And then like Moon Knight pulls out his truncheon and just like hits his wrist. He's like, ow.
Yeah, literally, it's a snap on the page. You're like, he broke his wrist or something.
He's like, and then like, this guy has glasses and he knocks him in the face with the truncheon, the nunchuck truncheon, and knocks him out. And then the Dragon, the martial arts guy's like, oh, you have nunchucks? I have nunchucks too. But it doesn't really matter because apparently he sucks at everything fighting wise because Moon Knight kicks his ass.
Moon Knight is quicker.
But then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, the big guy, Bull,
he gets sucker punched.
He gets sucker punched by Bull, and then he takes Bull on. Bull is just literally a big man. I don't think he's really got that many fighting skills. He's just muscular because Moon Knight is able to like upper kick him in the face. Like it was almost like, what's that? Isn't there like a what's that? The Austin Powers where like they're like next to each other fighting, and you just see a foot come up.
How much?
That's exactly what this looks like. Moon Knight's foot just goes bah, like right in the guy's face. Then he takes out Bull, no problem, pretty much. And then we cut back to as Moon Knight and Frenchie take care of Dragon and Blade and Bull, or Bull's I guess crashed through the floor, so that he doesn't take care of them. But they pull. I guess they tie them up for later. I don't know.
Yeah.
Then they
for the police to come get.
For the police, yeah. But Bull gets away, and he makes a call saying, "Hey, Ace, he's on to us," or whatever. And Marlene just happens to be in the room with Ace when he gets this call, giving him a lap dance. She's grinding on him, and he's like, "Hold on, babe, I got a call." And like, and so he's like, "Oh yeah, Moon Knight's onto us, huh?" So then it was very weird. I thought, oh, he knows it's her, like she's in on it, because he even says like she's asking a lot of questions. He's thinking to himself like, why is she asking so many questions? Is she trying to get information out of me? So like when he gets the call, you think he'd be like, oh, she's working for Moon Knight, but he doesn't. He just shuts the lights off and walks out and is like, stay here, babe. Like she's gonna sit in a dark room, like pitch black room the whole time. Doesn't make any sense. But Ace is like ready to like. I guess Bull told him, meet me at this place. We're gonna fight Moon Knight here, and so Ace is like waiting at that place on another roof, like to snipe down at Moon Knight, who he knows is gonna look from a skylight. Just happens to be right above the area that Bull is gonna be at, and so he starts shooting, sniping at Moon Knight. He's a bad shot though. So
yeah, for someone who's supposed to be a master assassin, he's not a very good shot.
Not very good at all.
That or Moon Knight really is just like the quickest, like dodge,
Yeah, and so so part of this was the reason why Bull was there in the first place was that's where they were going to pay off the fighter or whatever, or pay for like taking a dive.
Take a dive, yeah.
And so there's a bunch of money in a case, and the guy who has the money in the case runs away. And Bull, who's running away from Moon Knight, is like, oh, shit, I got to get away. And there just happens to be a boat waiting for him at the dock next to this place. So he gets in the boat, and, of course, Moon Knight just fucking is able to jump while being shot at, I think, and just jumps on this speeding boat that's like 15 feet away. And he's able to make that. I was like, that's pretty crazy jump.
Did you see the spraying he did? Spraying.
Yeah, that's right. The word spraying is on the page.
That's how you know he was able to make that jump.
Some crazy parkour is what that is. So he has this big epic fight scene with Bull, and Bull's actually like winning, and Moon Knight's on the ground like, oh my god, he's just too strong. And then all of a sudden, I don't know why, but Ace, who was supposed to be an ace shot, I assume that's why they call him Ace. I don't know if he was trying to hit Moon Knight's head, but Bull jumps at Moon Knight, and Moon Knight ducks down, and Ace shoots Bull through the chest.
Yep.
So kills Bull for him. Bull dies. As he does, he grabs the steering wheel, and the boat turns around back to the shore, and the boat runs into the docks and throws Moon Knight. And Moon Knight's sitting there all like knocked out on the ground. And Ace is like, finally, he's still. I can shoot him. Because apparently...
finally, he's, not moving.
Ace fucking sucks. That's why. And so... Or no, Ice. His name's Ice. Not Ace, sorry.
He's going to ice you. Yeah.
He's going to ice you. And so Ice is taking aim, and all of a sudden Marlene's like, what are you doing here? And like she basically says, like, you left me in the dark. And like, I'm tired of grinding up on you and shit. And like, she karate chops his face. And then they're fighting. Like, she's kind of holding her own against him. I was surprised. But Moon Knight gets up and he hears like the fighting.
Because it's all that working out she does.
Yeah. And he takes the gun that Ice had and he hits Ice in the face, ties him up. And the mystery is solved. We have the 5 guys beat, and they're all tied up for the police, and they get arrested. And then at the end, they have this big thing of money. And the weird thing is, they're talking about like Crowley has a couple stories where he's like, man, it'd be great if I could pay rent this month and stuff like that. Like, I'm really hungry. He's friends with a fucking millionaire.
No, he's friends with Jake Lockley.
No, but they know who he is.
Now that's true, yeah.
So it's like, hey, buddy, millionaire, can you pay for my fucking apartment? I am your informant.
I am helping you, yeah.
I'll still be the homeless guy on the streets if you want, but I'd like to go back to my apartment and not have to worry about being evicted. Same with Gina. I got 2 teenage boys. I got to work at a diner. Where's my fucking bread? All right? Like, I'm helping you out all the time. And they just brush it off like, well, that's how it is. We're just glad we can help. You know, like, but anyway, Grant or Lockley, whatever, Moon Knight is nice enough to say, hey, we'll split the money. But not 3 ways or 4 ways or whatever the fuck he was going to. He's like, we're going to donate a third of this to charity. We're going to split a third of it between you guys. And then the other third, I don't remember where it goes, but it's not like to anybody. It's like, and this will go for expenses or something. It's like, what the fuck are you talking about? Everybody's okay with this too. It's like, what? Why would you give it to charity? We are charity. Us right here need the money. So it's very weird. I don't know. What'd you think about it?
Yeah, I don't know. That was weird. It was
no, the other 25 goes to Bermuda. That he's going to take them all on a vacation. Like, bitch, you could do that with your own money.
Yeah.
How about you give us split 50? We get you 25 and you take us to Bermuda. We helped you
just
take
us,
yeah. The fuck? Moon Knight, cheap ass bastard. So, so yeah, that's how the story ends, and that's like the main ending of this 4-issue arc. We got the growth of the origin and his weapons and his team, and that's like why these 4 issues are important and kind of grouped together. So, with that being said, John, what did you think? What would you give it?
Oh, I still really liked it. Like, I definitely, you can see it's the early origins. I like that they didn't have to. I like the beginning where they were able to like kind of like fast forward and they didn't have to like
they're like, well,
hardcore
the rest,
in the paint of it. So that was really nice, and I like that like they obviously were trying to figure out what to do with him, but they never quite were like they were like, well, this is cool, but we haven't quite developed this whole idea, but like like there's something here, and they're going with that. So I got that, and then now knowing like what I know for the other background and like what they do with him and where it goes, like I'm taking that into consideration with the character now.
Yeah,
just this comic. If I just look at just this,
you mean with his disorder, like
making it his DID, his split personality, and then and like where they go with that in the comics. As well as like now, that we're getting the show and whatnot. Like, if I just look at the comic itself, it's a little lackluster. Like, it's cool, like some of the ideas they come up with, and I definitely like some of the.
It's an origin story.
Yeah. So yeah, it doesn't quite fall as hard on that as some do because of what they were able to do, but it is a little bit. But I guess now that I have that little bit of extra background on it, like I'm looking a little more like. Not friendly. I'm looking a little more like I like it a little more than I probably would have.
Yeah.
So I would say if I just picked this up, I would be like, like it was a 6. It was fun. I enjoyed it. I would say like knowing what I have now and like being like actually interested in Moon Knight and like knowing how he's been developed as a character, overall, I would say I would probably give it a 7 now.
Okay. I don't remember what I gave X Factor because this isn't the same time, but it's around the same time writing, and I think it was a 7.5 I gave X Factor because I liked X Factor a lot. this was definitely harder to read than X Factor. Like it was a little earlier, so it's still that generation of comics where it's like they haven't quite figured out how to not say, and then Moon Knight jumps from the ladder down to the street and punches the guy in the face while the art shows that. Yeah. So not all the time. It was like sometimes it would do that, and I'm like, why? Just show the panel, like.
Yeah.
So there's stuff like that. Or if you're gonna have stuff like that, just have narration of like his thoughts or something else that we don't see on the page.
I'm going to make this impossible jump.
Or like I'll use my truncheon to throw at him or whatever, because that'll trip him or whatever. And then the next panel you should show at least something like that. Not exactly explicitly what's going on. So,
hey, dear reader, check.
Yeah, not a Stan Lee right there. So, but I did enjoy the second issue specifically. I really liked that issue. I don't know until the end, until like the like
it's my boy.
Yeah, until that part. But before that, the whole like this is a serial killer and it's super fucked up and he's murdering people, and they go into like the cops hardcore on this about not caring about that. And so I just thought that like really built up the world that they're in, even though it's New York, it's still like comic book New York. Yeah. And it's different New York than if you read Daredevil or Spider-Man or any of that.
For sure.
Just seeing Moon Knight's New York is cool to like flesh that out. There's a serial killer in issue 2. Like we're trying to hardcore it up. And also the first guy we fight is a dude named Bushman who has fucking diamond teeth and death skull face and all this stuff. So like they're trying to make it a little more hardcore than the usual thing. I also liked that they, like you said, well, at first I didn't like that they just skip shit. They're like, and that's his origin, and now he's 4 people. Like at first, when I first read it. And then as I read more of the issues, I was like, okay, I actually like that they didn't have to, like, I'm glad they don't spend a lot of time hearkening back to how he becomes Moon Knight directly and everything. He just is. He's Moon Knight now. He's Stephen Grant. He's Jake Lockley. And that's what it is. Mark Spector sometimes, very rarely, is the main guy now. So it's just good to know that, like, it was a good way to just throw you into the middle of it. We don't need to know that stuff.
I will say, you just kind of rehashing it made me think, like, man, the villains just kind of get suckier and suckier as these couple issues went along.
Midnight Man, I was like, all right, like, okay.
And I was even like, I was okay a little more with Midnight Man because it was almost like a night and day kind of looking.
Yeah, I mean, that works, but it was still like pretty lackluster.
But then by the end, it's like these 5 super assassins that all suck.
They are not super or assassins. Like they do very bad at killing people.
Bushman was like, he was like felt like a villain, very like creepy. And
the best thing, yes, Bushman felt great. The serial killer felt good until the end when it was like, it's my dad. And then Midnight Man was like, that's okay, whatever.
It was okay, yeah.
But the assassins, the best thing about that issue was the fact that they sent 2 underage children to strip club. And then Marlene had to go be a stripper at a strip club, the same strip club, to get information. It's like, they really like showing strip clubs in this comic, I guess. Yeah. And it was funny that he like makes them, I don't make it, but he's like, hey,
would you mind?
Can I send you? And like Gina never finds out that her sons were in strip clubs, or that they had a gun pointed at them, or that they fought a man with a gun and got the gun back. Yeah, well, I can only.
She would have been asking for some more of that money, or never doing this again.
For real. So I thought there were funny parts in some of the later issues, but I thought issue 2 was the one that stood out the best. So I'm gonna give this one, like you said, knowing what I know, how it goes different, or like gets bigger, like as far as the DID or the personality disorder. I feel like the roots are really strong for that here. So I feel like it was meant, but it's nice to see where it came from. It's nice to see, okay, like that's what we did. It's kind of like when you read Swamp Thing and you're like, okay, Swamp Thing's a swamp monster. And then Alan Moore comes and is like, but what if he's an elemental god?
Yeah.
Like the threads are there, and maybe a little bit less there than Moon Knight is.
Yeah.
But it's cool when a good writer or a different writer is like, but what about this? And you're like, oh my God. Like, so the fact that was there in the first place is cool, that they could springboard off that and make like a very interesting character. Because I think he's different than every other superhero in the fact that he has a mental disorder that aids/hurts him, because he's always going back and forth between these personalities and all this stuff later on. But in this, I thought it was interesting that he's like literally like, I'm Stephen Grant. Now I'm Jake. Now I'm blah, blah, blah. And it's just interesting to see that.
Yeah.
But overall, I would give this one, it's tough, because I wouldn't be like, read this randomly.
Yeah.
But I would be like, if you like the show Moon Knight and you want to know more like where the character came from, and you want like kind of like a context of that, I would say read the first 4 issues, and it would be fine. So I'm gonna go from that point of view and say this is 6.5, like it's good, and I would read it. Specifically, issue 2 I enjoyed a lot. Like issue 1 was good too. Issue 1 and 2 were like pretty strong. There were things about that I laughed about. Oh, there's one thing. Okay, people who draw guns in comics, you can't silence a revolver. There's one scene where Marlene shoots the guy with a rubber bullet, and it's a silenced revolver. Just for future reference for artists, I know, guns are sometimes, like, you're just like, yeah, any gun.
This is the 80s.
Yeah, you can't silence a revolver, all right? Just for future reference, if you're a comic artist and you're going to draw a gun that's silenced, it can't be a revolver. I mean, they do that. Bill Sinkovich does it in this, and I was like, what the fuck? Like, I had to do like a double take. I'm like, why is that revolver have a weird... I'm like, oh, it's supposed to be silenced. And I'm like, that doesn't make any sense. So, because, they have an open chamber.
Yeah, I was like, that's literally just the barrel.
Yeah. So anyway, just a PSA.
Everything else is happening way down here.
Yeah. So, but yeah, 6.5 is what I'm going to give it, just because I think it is good in context of what Moon Knight became, what the show shows, and I think it is an interesting character and a very interesting personality, 4 personalities that need to be. I'm glad that he exists, kind of thing, and I would read more of this because I think later on I heard like Bushman comes back, Midnight Man, it comes back later and becomes one of his better villains. So I'd be interested to see that. Like, how do you make this guy that wasn't big deal? How do you make him very interesting?
A villain that you literally got entire arc of the villain in 1 issue.
Yeah. So that seems interesting to me, and I would read this. And also, you get to see Bill Sinkovich get better and better and better at art to where he's going to be becoming the Sinkovich, the guy that we know, later on in Marvel. So, I don't think there's anything else we got to say. John, what are we reading next week?
Next week is going to be our it's a holiday weekend, so we're going to go a little holiday special for Easter, and we will be reading one of my favorite comics from when I first started reading comics, got really back into when Matt and I first became friends. It is called Battle Pope. Battle Pope
by the famous Robert Kirkman, who wrote The Walking Dead.
Yes.
He has a little known comic called Battle Pope.
And I will only tell you, if you know nothing about it, the title tells exactly what the story is about.
Much like Battle Pug.
Yes. It is about a pope who does battle with, you could imagine what he would do battle with, demons and all sorts of craziness. And if you want us to spoil it for you, check it out our next episode, or you can read along. I know it's on Comixology. It's
Amazon. It's on Amazon.
And it's on Amazon. Pardon me.
They fucked up and now they're Amazon.
But it is really...
It's a comedy book.
It is a comedy.
And if you are particularly religious or sensitive to those things, then probably don't check this one out.
Because I mean, if there's a God, he's got a sense of humor. Look at the platypus, right?
Yeah, or the echidna.
Or the echidna, any of those. But seriously, it is extremely blasphemous, but it is very like, I mean, this is crazy. This is very, it's crazy.
Yeah. So that's what we're reading next week. If you guys have any comments, questions, or suggestions, you can email us at planestrains&comicbooks, all one word, @gmail.com.
And don't forget about our Instagram, Twitter, and YouTube channel for exclusive content. Also, if you feel so inclined, we have our coffee, ko-fi.com/planes, trains, and comic books. You can kind of get everything we do during the week we put up there. Kind of gives you you can sign up for our newsletter there basically, and it kind of goes over everything we've done that week, all of Matt's exclusives. When Will pops in for one of his videos, our weekly podcast here. And also, if you feel the need, you can donate to us one time, or you can sign up for one of our tiers.
Yeah, we have a couple member tiers. One of them is you get to suggest a book and you get a shout out. So if you are like, why the fuck haven't they covered this book? It's driving me crazy. You sign up for that tier, you can suggest a book. Right now we're doing once a month. So if you want to suggest a book once a month, you can do that. And we will read it, probably. I mean, there's very few that we wouldn't read, but for the most part, we will read it. And at the very least, I would say we'd still do a review of it, but maybe it wouldn't be a full episode. But I think most everything people would suggest would be a fine thing to do a whole episode on. So if you're that person and you want us to review a specific book that we have not touched, you can sign up there and we'll give you a shout out and we will do the book you want for that month. So, and ongoing as long as you're part of that tier. So, with that being said, we'll see you guys on the next one.
On the next one.
Bye.